Good afternoon, Year 7. Welcome back to week 2 of our development topic this term. We thought about this a little bit last week, but this week we are asking ourselves the question, how do you measure development and what can it tell us about the world? So just a little reminder, you need to have a pen and paper ready. I'm going to talk you through our question for the week, a little bit about the tasks, and then you'll be ready to go. Before we dive into this week's learning question, I'd like us to recap our learning question from last week. So our question last week, what is development and what does it look like? And you would have answered that in one of the 4 tasks you had to pick from. What I'd like you to do now is pause the video and write down in 50 words or less the answer to that question. Use what you learned last week and have a think. What do you now understand development is and what does that look like in the world? Okay, lovely. So hopefully you've paused the video, you've written that down, and we are going to have a think about it. So is that question an easy question to answer? No, it's not. And part of that is down to the different ways we can measure development, but we'll come on to those in a minute. When we're thinking about development, hopefully we framed it in a geographical context. We thought about the development of countries. Hopefully we now understand what we mean by developing versus developed. Hopefully we got an idea of what quality of life was, poverty and income. And some of those keywords we defined last week are going to be really important for this week. So if you didn't do task 1, please just make sure you've reminded yourself what poverty, income, quality of life and development are. Excellent. So with those in mind, we're going to jump right into our different ways of measuring development. There are lots of different ways that we can measure development, but this week we're going to focus on 3 more commonly used ones, each of which relates to one of the facets of development that we looked at last week. So we have social, environmental and economic. So our first measure is life expectancy. That is our more social measure. However, it still links to an economic aspect because we are measuring how long people live. And the reason that is a good development indicator is because it tells us the healthcare provision. So do they have good healthcare, which suggests that they have a higher standard of development. The second measure is HDI, which stands for Human Development Index. Now this measure covers lots of other measures, including the other 2 within it. Therefore, it is the most comprehensive measure. It's probably the most accurate, but it also leaves the most room for errors. And then finally, we're going to look at GNI, which is gross national income. That is our economic measure. It looks at the income of a country, which hopefully we can remember what income means. Now, these measures are all great over long term, but what they don't show us is the shorter term changes. We're going to think more about changes to development over time next week. What I want you to think about now, before we move on, pause the video and write down why you think development might be hard to measure. So why is it hard to measure development the same way in every country? Pause your PowerPoint, write down your ideas. Okay, hopefully we've got lots of excellent ideas written down, or even just started to think about the fact that it is harder to measure development. Some countries don't have the statistics, some countries won't release their statistics, some countries might consider life expectancy is measured in one way, another might use a different way to measure it. Even though the average age you live to should be the same everywhere, there will be lots of little different things. So when we are considering these 3 measures, I want you to just remember that it isn't a complete science. It's not 100% accurate every time. So moving on, I'm just going to talk now about our 4 tasks for the week, nice and briefly. Okay, so in front of you is the map that, if you choose to do task 1, will appear on the screen. I just wanted to talk you through a little bit about what a choropleth map is, just so that we're all clear, and how to interpret it. So on our choropleth map, we will have a key. The key is done in colours, and those colours show us a range of statistics. In this case, our statistic is GNI. So this is showing us GNI across the world, and it's colour coded. So the darker the blue, the higher a country's GNI, the higher the GNI, the more developed the country. So we can see this country here, which hopefully we all know is the USA. I've also circled a bit of Mexico there, but don't worry, we're looking at the darker blue. The USA has a GNI of 5.44 or above. That means they are one of the most developed countries in the world. In comparison, if we take one of these countries here, you can see they are a lighter blue, which means they probably have 0.44 or below, or between 0.44 to 1.66. Now, just to be clear, that is trillions of dollars. It's usually done in dollars so that it is equal across everyone and you're not taking into account the different currencies. Now, some countries may be not on the map. So if we, not on the key, if we considered Greenland, there will be no data for Greenland, which is why it's not coloured in blue. So we've got the USA is a nice dark blue, which shows it is 5.44 or above. Algeria there, which I circled second, is a lighter colour, so that will be somewhere between 0.04 to 1.66, and then you have Greenland, which has no data. Now, what task 1 is asking you to do is describe the pattern of GNI, as well as defining some key terms for this week. When we describe patterns using a map, just a little reminder, you're going to use compass directions. So we have north is the top, then east, south and west. You can also use country names like I just did, so USA, Algeria, Russia, and you can describe them via continent. So you might say that Africa has a lower GNI overall than North America does, okay? And I want you to pick out patterns. Is the north of the map darker blue than the south? Is the west more than the east? Maybe there aren't those sort of patterns. Maybe you'll have to pick individual countries. We can see Europe is quite a dark blue generally, but there are a few light blue ones. You can see that Africa is generally a lighter colour than Asia, for example. So task 1, you are going to define some key terms and then you're going to use this map and describe the distribution of GNI across the world. Then we come on to task 2 and 3. So task 2 and 3 are very similar. Task 2 is asking you to take 2 countries and compare them. So you're going to look at their GNI, their HGI, their life expectancy, and then you're going to write a short paragraph, no more than 150 words, to compare what those countries' levels of development are like. So pick a more developed country and a less developed country, and you're going to find out their statistics. I put some links on the PowerPoint on the Word document to help you. Okay, task 3 is a similar thing, but you're going to just take one country. So you're going to look at a less developed country or a low income country, and you are going to find out its GNI, HGI, life expectancy, and then you're going to think about why that country might be less developed. So that's going to take a little bit more research. You might pick the Democratic Republic of Congo and you might look into why it is less developed, okay? That one is task 3, and then finally task 4, I've popped a link up to another website, but in task 4 we're going to think about what other statistics can we use to measure development. We've picked, or I've picked for you, 3 commonly used ones here, but what about if we used donkeys to measure development? What would that tell us? Or what about if we did something similar to Dollar Street and we thought about toilets? So what I want you to do is for task 4, go onto that website, find a statistic and think about how we can use it to measure development and why it would show us development. Okay, so that's just a brief summary of the 4 tasks which are going to pop up on the screen next. Okay, so there are our tasks for this week. Just a little reminder, I have put the textbook pages here. If you need a copy of the textbook, you can email your teacher. I will try and remember to put them on class charts. They are there to help you, especially with the definitions. The other things you will have to research a bit more. You'll need the web links to do that. 1, 2 and 4 have their web links in them, and as you can see, you're going to use the web links in task 2 to help you with task 3. Okay, there are no extra worksheets this week, so it's just this lovely presentation and the grid. A little reminder that we are sending work to our normal class teacher. I went over those last week, but just so we're clear, your normal teacher is getting your work. And if you are in 7D, you're sending your work to Mr. Kilcoyne this week, not Mr. Furnage. So for this term, 7D, send all of your work to Mr. Kilcoyne. Okay, lovely. Hopefully we are ready to go on our week 2 question, which is how do we measure development and what can it tell us about the world? So off you go to do your tasks. I look forward to seeing your lovely work and I will see you here again next week.